We all know how important our eyes are. Sight, like the other senses, is closely related to other parts of our anatomy. We'll start our lecture with the outer part of our eye, which is composed of the eyelids and lashes, that acts as the first line of defense for our eyes, keeping airborne dirt and dust from reaching the delicate eye tissue. The lacrimal gland releases a fluid known as tears that lubricates and moistens the eye's surface while cleansing and protecting it. The structure found in the medial aspect of our eyes is called the nasolacrimal duct, which consists of the upper and lower lacrimal canaliculi and the lacrimal sac. Their job is to drain the tear fluid from the ocular surface into the lower meatus of the nose. This colored part of our eyes is called the iris. The hole inside the iris, which is called the pupil, controls the amount of light entering the eye by constricting the muscle fibers in the iris. And finally, we have the sclera, the white part that surrounds all these structures and forms the eye globe. There's a transparent layer called the conjunctiva, which covers the sclera and lines the inside of the eyelids as well. It provides protection and lubrication of the eye by production of mucus and tears, and it prevents microbial entrance into the eye and plays a role in immune surveillance. The extraocular muscles are located within the orbit, but are extrinsic and separate from the eyeball itself. They mainly act to control the movements of the eyeball. It's important to know the difference between anatomical description of actions of extraocular muscles and the clinical tests of their function. The anatomical description of eye muscles' actions delineates the movements of individual muscles. The clinical examination, on the other hand, involves asking the patient to move his eye in certain directions in order to determine whether there's a defect in nerves and muscle groups. In this video, we will focus on the anatomical actions of the extraocular muscles. There are 6 extraocular muscles. Starting with the superior rectus, its main movement is elevation, and it contributes to the encyclotorsion and adduction of the eyeball. Inferior rectus, main movement is depression, and it contributes to the excyclotorsion and adduction of the eyeball. Medial rectus adducts the eyeball. Lateral rectus abducts the eyeball. There are 2 oblique muscles. Superior oblique, its main movement is encyclotorsion, and it contributes to the depression and abduction of the eyeball. Inferior oblique, its main movement is excyclotorsion, and it contributes to the elevation and abduction of the eyeball. The following rule can be used to memorize the nerve supply of the extraocular muscles. SO4, LR6, the rest is 3. Which means all extraocular muscles are supplied by the oculomotor nerve except the superior oblique, which is supplied by the trochlear nerve, and the lateral rectus muscle supplied by the abducens nerve. Let's dig a little bit deeper. This is a sagittal view of our eyeball showing the anterior chamber, which is between the cornea and the iris, and the posterior chamber, which is between the iris, zonule fibers, and lens. How we see depends upon the transfer of light. Light passes through the cornea to the lens, which both help to focus the light rays onto the retina. Pupil is the dark center opening in the middle of the iris. It changes size to adjust for the amount of light available, smaller for bright light and larger for low light. The iris is the colored part of the eye which helps regulate the amount of light entering through the pupil. The ciliary body is a structure behind the iris that contains muscles that focus the lens. The sclera is the white outer coat of the eye surrounding the iris. The choroid is a layer containing blood vessels that lines the back of the eye and is located between the retina, the inner light-sensitive layer, and the sclera, the outer white eyeball. The retina is the nerve layer lining the back of the eye. The retina senses light and creates electrical impulses that are sent through the optic nerve to the brain. The vitreous humor is the clear gelatinous substance filling the central cavity of the eye. Now, before we move on, press pause and try to recall which nerve innervates the superior oblique muscle. The cornea is made up of 5 cellular and acellular components. The layers include epithelium, Bowman's layer, stroma, descendants membrane, and endothelium. Here's an easy mnemonic to remember the corneal layers: A, B, C, D, E. A for anterior epithelium, B for Bowman's layer, C for stroma, D for descendants membrane, and E for endothelium. Lastly, let's talk about the retina. This is a picture of a healthy retina showing the macula and the fovea at its center. The fovea's function is to ensure that the eye provides a central vision of a high resolution and for individuals' color perception ability. The neurosensory retina is mainly made up of 3 groups of neurons: photoreceptors, bipolar cells, and ganglion cells. There are 2 types of photoreceptors, the rods and cones. The rods are responsible for vision in dim light or dark, sensing contrast, brightness, motion, and usually produce images of black and white shades. Cones are responsible for vision in bright light, fine resolution, 3-dimensional, and color vision. The density of rods and cones varies in different parts of the retina. The density of cones increases near the macula, and the foveal region contains only cones.